Hi everyone, I'm super excited for this session with the lovely Kate Hunter. We're going to be talking all about conscious parenting and raising a highly sensitive child. I don't have any children myself, but I'm still really interested in this topic. And I like to think this summit is my little way of giving back to the future generations. So I want to give Kate a shout out with her bio. I'm just going to quickly read it old school, just to give her some justice so you know who she is. So Kate is a HSP herself and a HSP parent, and as she says, an endlessly curious soul. She works as a global intuitive executive coach who works predominantly with executives, entrepreneurs, and HSPs who feel stuck at a crossroads. I'm sure we've all been there, and those who want to explore a new beginning. To her unique intuitive ways, she blends her formal executive coaching, her learning and development background, and her understanding of neuroscience with more intuitive, holistic, and spiritual practices. So it sounds amazing, doesn't it? So welcome, Kate. I'm really delighted to have you here today. Before I dive into the questions, just going slightly off tangent, but I'd love to know, what age were you when you discovered you were HSP, and how did you kind of come to that realization?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much, Sharon. So excited to be here and talking about this topic, actually. So I was around about 38, 39. So I am 43 now. So that's like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's one of the reasons actually why I'm so passionate about this topic is because I feel like many of us at this summit will have discovered this later on in our lives, right? Hopefully there's some people here to listening back, watching, who are younger. That'd be great. But many of us, like myself, came to it later on in life, and it was like that piecing together, that light bulb moment of, oh my goodness, that's why I felt the world differently. That's why I felt so intensely about things. That's why I experienced life and the world intensely, and why I became so overwhelmed so easily, overstimulated, all of those things. And I did like a bit of a replay in my mind, and it was like various points of my life suddenly became clear and I understood myself better. So that's how I kind of came to it. I can't exactly remember how or when, but I think we'll come to at the right point in our lives, won't we? And yeah, and from there I then had understanding. I had my son. He's 8 now. I suddenly looked through parenting differently, through the lens of parenting differently, and more consciously became aware of how his world was. And I saw very quickly that he was highly sensitive. And as we do, we start to reparent our inner child ourselves through our children. We give them, we understand them better. We can meet their needs better in a way that, many of our parents who were raising us, I've got absolutely loving, incredible parents, the best parents I could have ever wished for. And they were navigating raising me with the information, understanding, and experience that they had. But HSP wasn't a thing, it wasn't understood back then as a child. So, bless them, they did the best that they could, like many of our parents would have done, but they weren't able to meet our needs in the way that we required them to. And we weren't, as children, able to articulate that. So, it's amazing having that conversation with my parents now and helping them to understand why I was a certain way as a child, or why I experienced the world in the way that I do now. And I can see the light bulbs going with them too. And they're like, oh, okay, right, okay, I understand this. So that's my experience of kind of identifying as HSP.
Amazing. And like I was 47, so a bit older, and I know all of our speakers found out at different stages, some like 50. So if we can help anyone find out a bit earlier, or even parents have that light bulb moment and then reflect it back with their children, that is amazing. So I'm super excited to have you on. The first question I want to ask is, kind of covered one already, but one I want to ask really is, how did you experience the world as a highly sensitive child?
Yes. Oh gosh. I guess I describe it as I felt it so deeply. You know, so highly sensitive children will be unique in their own special way. And so it's not a one size fits all. But for me, it was, I felt very deeply about things. I experienced emotions very deeply. I had sensory overload, fabrics, noises, you know, lights, sounds. Going to a theme park would be amazing in the moment, or so I felt, but then I would be wiped out and become very overtired, often ill, actually, experiencing kind of aches and pains and things like that. So a bit of chronic fatigue and things. But I was also the child who carried that burden of feeling deeply. So I would, you know, cry at bedtime often to myself about the state of the world, about animal cruelty, about really deep topics that would have come to me in whatever way that they did, but I experienced them very deeply, and I would feel it, I would cry about it. I remember, you know, when I look back, and there's moments that I can kind of reflect on now and think, wow, like my 8-year-old self would cry herself to sleep about whether she'd be able to have a child or not. You know, I should have been out playing and exploring and you know, just living in that moment. But I felt so deeply that I would almost reflect ahead and worry about and have anxiety about the future and about what was going to happen or what wouldn't happen. And I don't think my parents really knew what to do with that. They, you know, often it was just distraction away from it. Oh gosh, that's never going to happen, and then distract away from it. Whereas, you know, my understanding of conscious parenting now is that actually emotions, and especially when you feel deep emotions need to be felt, and they need their emotions, energy in motion. That's what it stands for, energy in motion. So that energy needs to work its way through. It needs to be understood, and it needs to be cleared out. Otherwise, you hold it within your body.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was another experience for me of holding it within my body, and then outwardly had eczema all over me.
Wow.
You know, chronic eczema all over me. And now I look back and I go, well, I'm not surprised, you know. When we're holding on to so many emotions, and we increase our stress levels, it's going to be reflected in our physical body. It's dis-ease with life, right? It's in some way. And then, you know, as I got older, it was it escalated. It was, you know, I had a low tolerance to stress, and I became a perfectionist, and that translated into eating disorders, and, you know, and it kind of escalated from there. So I now wonder if I was able to understand myself better as a child, and to have my needs met and be understood myself, whether or not those things would have happened. But, you know, they did. I'm here. I've navigated that path, and that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with others. So if you can raise your highly sensitive child in a way that they can be more secure with themselves, they have greater awareness about themselves, you know, they know the tools to support themselves, then actually you're giving them the tools to thrive and blossom in this world, rather than hide away and spiral into their own little space and become kind of more isolated, which I guess is what I did often with my feelings and how deeply I felt. And then there's the other classic of being the labels that I experienced as a highly sensitive child. It was being oversensitive, that old classic, you know, oversensitive, anxious. She's an anxious child. I often got labelled as bossy too, which I think was in times when I was probably quite dysregulated and I needed it a certain way. And, you know, that wasn't by my parents, actually, interestingly enough. That was more like teachers and kind of friends of parents and other adults in my world. And it's really interesting, you know, when we label a child something, you know, their little subconscious is internalizing that. And our belief systems, our core belief systems, are set by the age of 7. So what we do with our little HSCs now matters, because it's going to affect their core beliefs about themselves. And how they can show up in this world and how they can thrive.
Absolutely. I love everything you said there. And I had a bit of a light bulb because I had eczema as well. And I was like, oh, I wonder how many HSPs have had like something like eczema. And I definitely broke out. And it would be from probably situations that were a little bit stressful to me, or having to kind of mask myself to do things that didn't
Yeah.
feel fully aligned with me, you know, and kind of going along with the non-HSP norm. And
Yeah.
like you said, feeling things like super deeply. Um, yeah, and I know a lot of like HSP children are kind of called like old souls because you have that kind of, you're kind of just thinking bigger and you're thinking of the future, like you said, and you're not just living in the now. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting. Just I wonder how many like people listening today, like stick in the chat if you've had eczema or anything like that, let us know, because that's really interesting. I don't really have it so much now as an adult, but that's probably because I'm more in tune with who I am and I know what stresses me, whereas you know when you're young you are kind of forced to do certain things whether you like to or not. And yeah, that's really interesting. You just made me reflect that I haven't had it in a while,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, and the same with me. You know, I don't suffer with eczema now. Like the odd little spot every now and then, and it will always make me reflect back on what's been going on.
Yeah.
The other things that might manifest physically are things like IBS.
Yeah.
You know, things that are often stress associated. But I do think that it's your body talking to you, right, about the way that you are supporting yourself or not supporting yourself in the world in any way really, but as HSPs more so because we feel it so deeply.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully some light bulb moments for people around kind of physical representations of their sensitivities too.
Yeah, I love the way you broke even down the word disease as dis-ease.
It's easier. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like really powerful because I've never even thought of it like that. So you gave me a little light bulb. So if someone is listening to this and they're unsure if their child is a highly sensitive child, like how can they find out? What are some of the things to look out for?
Yeah. It's a huge topic, right? Because as we know, everyone's unique and all children are unique. But I guess the first starting point for me when I realized for myself that I was an HSP and then I looked at my son, I was like, oh gosh, you know, I have a responsibility here to become aware about him, understand him, and you know, the wonderful Dr. Elaine Aron has written a beautiful book on this. It's called The Highly Sensitive Child.
Lovely.
So it's specifically about children. And I don't know if many people feel the same, but sometimes when I see a thick book like that, it overwhelms me slightly. So if it does, that's okay, order it, but read the intro and the first chapter. And if, you know, bite size, have a look through that. And but the first thing I would say is actually trust your gut on this. Like, you know your child better than anyone. If you've noticed kind of the way that they experience the world, whether they have keen awareness, right? So heightened senses. One thing I forgot to mention about myself as a child, which is quite kind of interesting, is I sensed my senses were very, very high alert. So I had sixth senses too. So I had what's called the clair senses. I didn't know then. I had premonitions about things, would you believe, Jen? So actually, there may be some people listening that, you know, have children that will talk very deeply about topics that scare them a little bit. So I had premonitions about the future and they would happen. You know, they came true, but it scared my parents and it scared me.
Yeah, yeah.
So because I sensed things that were going to happen and I didn't understand where I got this information from, I understand myself now. I'm intuitive. I have actual almost like mediumship skills and all the clairvoyance and clairsentience and all these things. I didn't understand myself then. It was a very scary place. So keen awareness is one of the things. So heightened senses in whatever way, even if it's down to, you know, physical touch, the fabrics that they're wearing, the way that they experience noise in the world, that sort of thing. The second thing is experiencing intensely. So how they process the experiences that they have in their life. So for example, my son finds school very difficult. And, you know, that's a whole other topic, but the school environment for him and the experience of it is intense.
Yeah.
So we have to support him in managing how he can show up at school in a way that supports him and how he can thrive in that environment. Written posts on this, but I'm taking him out one day a week at the moment on a Wednesday, which I'm calling a reset day. And it is purely around kind of the pillars of well-being and resetting his nervous system to allow him to do 2 days, come out, reset, and then do another 2 days. So
wow.
Him. And then the third thing is, you know, the tendency to feel overloaded or overwhelmed by certain experiences, more heightened than normal, as it were. Hate the word normal, but
I know
you know, children will experience the world intensely sometimes, but it's like kind of that pattern of experiencing intensely, and how much of that can then kind of tip into what people perceive to be meltdowns or tantrum and that sort of thing. And how you show up and respond to that and hold space for that is absolutely critical. And you know, there's great information in this book, which I will share in kind of a link after this session. I've also picked up these nifty little amazing thin books, which really appeal to me.
Nice.
One's called Understanding the Highly Sensitive Child, Seeing an Overwhelming World Through Their Eyes, and Making Sense of Meltdowns was another one. So I'll share those ones as well. Really good. And those ones are written by a parent. So he's not an expert, he's a parent who's experienced raising a highly sensitive child like myself. Those are great. And they kind of give you little simple tools and kind of, you know, ways of navigating and being a parent for your younger one. But there's a quiz as well that goes with Elaine's work, Dr. Elaine Aron's work. Again, take it with a pinch of salt, but it may be something that they want to actually just go through, run through, and kind of do a bit of a checklist on, oh yes, my child is like this or doesn't do this. That's quite
wow. No, thanks for sharing that. I like that little recommended reading list. So yeah, definitely stick that below for people to check out. Interesting what you said as well about, you know, just even fabrics. It made me think, yeah, I can't wear wool. And again, can you wear wool? I wonder how many HSPs can tolerate it, and especially with smell. You know, even now I kind of joke with my husband because he loves the really like heady, strong perfumes from the 80s my mum used to wear. And they blow the head off me. Like I would get a migraine. So I always have to wear quite, I would say, kind of like therapeutic kind of aromatherapy style fragrances that just kind of calm me. My husband always likens them to washing up liquid. Well, I like them. They make me, you know, I like the smell. They make me, but yeah, he loves the real heady ones. And I just, any strong smell, I just can't cope with it. It's like,
and it will impact your nervous system if we take in that kind of, actually it's chemicals as well, right? To be fair, in perfumes and things, it's actually going to knock out our nervous system in some way, and then we're going to need to reset. You know, we all have our little traits. I have to take a pillowcase, Jen, with me wherever I go. If I'm sleeping somewhere, I'm so sensitive to.
I do it.
Yeah, there you go.
If I'm going somewhere that, you know, even if I was going somewhere like local in the UK, or I've been known to bring the pillow.
I take the whole pillow too. I've got to admit, take the whole pillow. But you know, we're sensitive to fabrics, like, you know, actually laying on something different, having different bedclothes. You know, I can't sleep on anything with feathers. So it's knowing those things and just being cool with it. You know, that's fine. And the same for your child. If it might seem over the top to some people. Now, I hate the word over anything, because who dictates how much of something we can be, right? But those things, all those little things add up. They matter. And your child will be giving you information about their needs and what helps them, you know, feel better in this world. And if it is taking a pillowcase with them or their own pillow with them, right? Just let them.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. And yeah, I'm also allergic to feathers, so there's lots of things here. What would you say are the key conscious parenting ingredients to raising a HSC when you're a HSP yourself?
That it's a personal recipe. So I'm gonna share what I think are kind of top level, kind of 3 core things that you could have a look at. So as the listener, they can have a look at, and then they can work out their own unique blend of what that looks like, right? So for themselves, but also for their child. So the first 2 kind of go together. So I'm going to say them all at once, and then I'll kind of go through all of them. But it's the first one is compassion and understanding. Second one is role modeling. And the third one is those HSP tools for thriving. So knowing them. So the first 2, so compassion, understanding, and role modeling, right? Compassion and understanding has to begin with you first. You cannot show up for your child in a conscious way if your nervous system is dysregulated, if you haven't been looking after yourself, if your sensory overload is all over the place. You know, how can you come from a calm, centered place and show up for your the needs of your child, unless you're meeting your needs first? So it's a classic, so it's an old age adage, put your oxygen mask on first, right? It's see to you first, know you first, and know your points in the day where actually you're going to be more triggered or less resourced within yourself. You know, straight away comes to my mind, bedtime for me and my son has to be managed in a certain way, because I'm tired, and when I'm tired, I'm less resourced, and my nervous system is wacky sometimes. And you know, it's like I have to proactively manage bedtime in a certain way, and it might look a little bit too much for some people,
Yeah.
but I know for me and my son it works, right? It works. So compassion, understanding for you, and the role modeling piece is your child is watching you. You know, whether you're HSPs or not, your child is watching you, and your little HSP is watching you and the words that you're using with yourself about your sensitivities, and watching you navigate yourself in the world. And that's where they're going to get their template from.
Yeah.
You know, their perception of what it is to be an HSP will come from you. And and wouldn't it be lovely if they got this perception that it's an amazing thing to be? It's so empowering when you understand yourself, and you can share so many gifts with the world when you feel as deeply as we do. But we have to look after ourselves first. So role modeling is super, super important. And then the tools, as I say, are going to be unique. But for me, it's about regulating your nervous system first of all. So there's beautiful things like yoga nidra, which I use, is my go-to. Even 10 minutes of that deep yogic rest resets the nervous system. I use it proactively throughout my day, particularly around about 2 p.m. where I get that slump. It's like 5-10 minutes of yoga nidra, and it lifts me. It moves me from that sympathetic nervous state into rest and digest, parasympathetic nervous system. So for me, it's yoga nidra, it's breath work, it's just stepping out into nature, or even the garden, to put my bare feet on the grass, you know, grounding myself. Beautiful meditation. There's amazing things like somatic movements now, where you can literally do actual tapping and things like that on your body in a way that resets your nervous system. As is energy management, right? It's another classic. There's probably whole other sessions on that. But for me, buffering in that time when I'm working to manage my energy before I show up for a client, but also the ritual of when I've finished with a client, how do I make sure I'm actually protecting my energy, but also releasing the energy that is not mine, so that I can be fully resourced for my child, you know, later in the day, for example. And then emotion kind of regulation as well. One of the things that I use with my son is EFT, so emotional freedom technique. It's the tapping, you know. Again, I'm sure there's an expert session going on somewhere. But actually allowing energy and motion to release. And my son will now say to me at bedtime, if he's had kind of moments through the day that he needs to process, or he sometimes says, I don't know what I'm feeling, I need to do some tapping, mummy.
Oh, wow.
So he will tell me, and we will just go through a little round of tapping, and he's like, okay, I feel better.
amazing. Oh, I love
So
that. I love that he's so self-aware that he, well, even that he's telling you, he's articulating that he's got all these emotions, because I think we all had them, but we just had to mask and kind of put up and shut up. So yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, there is, shout out to Tammy, there is a session on EFT as
right.
well, which yeah, I would encourage anyone to check out after. It's amazing, and Tammy's amazing. And I think, yeah, I used to do it instinctively before I ever heard of tapping, just
Yeah.
mainly on my face, you know, around my nose or my sinuses. So it's funny how we kind of instinctively know how to manage our nerves.
Self-soothe, yeah, it's like a self-soothing thing, right? I always used to do this, and it's like actually there's a meridian point there, and it's intuitive, right? We're very intuitive people, and it's trusting yourself, but sometimes just bringing that awareness to it that you can use it proactively, and
Yeah.
remind yourself that you can use it proactively, and that it's easily translated for a child. There's some, actually I'll add it to the book list. There's a beautiful book for children about tapping, and it's told through a story about a wizard and the way that he manages emotions for his village and things like that. And it's beautiful, and it's such a simple tool that they can use on their own as well. You know, I know my son does little tapping bits when he's at school and things like that too, and it's beautiful.
Oh, amazing. Oh, thank you. That's great. That sounds amazing for all the reading list. Like, brilliant. I think it's going to help so many people. And it's interesting listening to you about, you're talking about your bedroom routine for the both of you. And it's making me reflect, like, I've always liked a sense of order and control. And it probably is because we're, you know, predominantly in a world that's not set up for us. And it's kind of like, well, these are the bits that I can control. And by controlling this, it soothes my nerves. So I've always been like a pretty organized person. And it's not been because I love organization. It's just been a way for me to like self-soothe, you know. So yeah, that's really interesting. And I imagine if I had a child, I would have a similar
Yeah,
routine, because
yeah,
yeah, like you say, when I laughed when you said, like, you know, the nerves can get a bit wacky, and they can. I know once you're not like looking after yourself, yeah, all the emotions bubble up. And you know, if it's not that you can snap, but you're just not yourself. So yeah, just being aware of, like you say, your rhythms, when your energy is good, when it's not. Sorry. And I know in the past I've kind of pushed on through, you know,
yes.
and kind of, you know, just wrecked myself, you know, not taking those proper breaks when you should. And I know one of my friends is a hypnotist, and I'm sorry about this, I'm gonna quickly take a sip, sorry. One of my friends, Anna, is a hypnotist, and in between clients, she's HSP as well. She brushes her teeth, which I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting. It kind of makes her minty fresh. That's her way of like detaching, and especially if she's going into another session with
Yes.
someone, she
But
does
it's
that.
also right, so it's a sensory thing and it's a mindful thing, so it's actually triple whammy. And it is about having the little rituals
Yeah,
for yourself to help you thrive and just identify what that might be. You know, for me, I have to have almost like a setting up piece before I go into a session with a client, where I prepare my energy, center myself, really ground myself. I can be fully present, but on the back end of that, I have to close that off and manage it for myself too. And don't get me wrong, I don't do this perfectly all the time. And I notice when I haven't done it. That's the thing, right? I notice when I've fallen off the wagon and I haven't done those things, and I've done too many sessions in a row, and it it will drain me. And that's not how I want to be, because that's not great for my son. And ultimately he's my reason why I do what I do in the first place.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, we better self-care. We totally need to do it. And I've always kind of had a massage once a month, I would say, throughout my adult life, probably from being like a teenager on. And now
Mm.
being in perimenopause, I'm doing two a month. And I think the old you would have been like, oh, that's a bit indulgent. And now I'm kind of like, no, I need it. My body needs it, my brain needs it. And not, you know, I'm sure the people are a bit like, oh, she loves to pamper herself. But it's like, well, it just
No,
keeps
necessity.
me sane.
It's a necessity. Like I do the same
Yeah.
with massage and reflexology. And actually I have a whole what I call spending pot in my bank account that is about um,
Self-care.
self-care. It is self-care. And actually for me, it's a non-negotiable. I've switched my mindset now. It's a non-negotiable that I do those things so I can show up as I need to be.
Yeah, it's true.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. And I get excited about spending money on self-care as well. I'm not
Yeah.
somebody that really gets excited about physical products like, bags or clothes or anything like that. But I get excited about, like you say, reflexology, tapping, any kind of a
Yeah.
spiritual thing. I'm like, I will happily give you my money and try it on me. Anything that helps me to feel better
Yeah.
and get like more energy. Amazing. So yeah, thank you. I love that you've shared that. So I could speak to you all day, Kate, because I know we've got loads in common, and like you're fascinating, and I love what you're saying about your son and how you're managing him, and I love your focus on the self-care as well, because I just think it's super important and a lot of people neglect it. And obviously we don't have the time to chat all day. So where's the best place for people to find you? Like where do you prefer to hang out? Is it like your website? Is it on a social platform or an email?
Well, you're pleased to know, Jen, it's LinkedIn. It is absolutely LinkedIn. This is where I'm at. I'm on there every day. You know, people can always message me through direct messaging and have a conversation, open up the conversation, whether it's about conscious parenting or being an HSP, or maybe they're an executive or an entrepreneur who identifies as an HSP. And that's it, right? So sometimes it's usually they've been sacrificing themselves and their inner needs and what their true desires are. So they've been living in a world which I call living a prescribed life, right? So doing the things that they're meant to do, they should do. And I'm always about ditching the shoulds now, ditching the shoulds, raising that awareness of who you are really, what you want truly, and then creating that plan, that new beginning that allows you to look after yourself, to, actually share your gifts with the world in the way that you want to, actually balance your life in the way that you need to, and kind of thrive. So I help people go through that. I call it, one of my main programs is called Revive and Redefine, and it is about reviving all the best bits of you, because there's so many of us discount so many beautiful things about ourselves. It's revive that and redefine what you want, redefine how you show up in the world and how you thrive in this world. And so contact me on LinkedIn. I'll put my links in, obviously the follow-up email as well. I will be holding some space, some sessions for anybody specifically looking to kind of investigate further into coaching, and if that would be a good fit for them. So I'll do some complimentary exploration sessions, that sort of thing. So if somebody's listening and they're kind of like, do you know what, sitting on the fence, just start a conversation. It begins with a conversation, quick little DM. I'm very human, as you can see, and it's, I would never push something if it wasn't right for somebody anyway. So, let's just have a conversation and explore that.
Amazing. And yeah, I don't think any HSPs for things on. So if anyone's listening to any of these speakers, don't be afraid to book in a call with them and have a chat. You never know where it's going to lead. We're all empaths. We're not going to like hard sell anyone or knock over the head. We're going to find out if it's right for you, and if it's not, we can connect you onto somebody else or something else. But it's always worth having a conversation, because I know you'll get amazing light bulbs even having a small chat with Kate. So do reach out, and yeah, of course, I'm happy you're on LinkedIn. I found you on LinkedIn. Funnily enough, we both had photos taken by the same lady, which is how I found Kate. So like minds find each other. Yeah, don't be shy to reach out and book in a call with Kate and have a chat, because as you can see, she's amazing and she can help you on your journey, and it's never too late to get on that journey. And like, don't beat yourself up if you've not known you're a HSP or you're only finding out now. Amazing, just chat to somebody who can actually help you take those skills into your career or your business, and just help you have a happier life. So we also say thank you so much for coming on, Kate. You've been amazing. And again, please check the links below, folks. Have a look below Kate's talk or on her bio. She's going to have that recommended reading list as well. And yeah, we just want to thank you for listening in, and we wish you all the best with your little HSCs. And yeah, I've loved chatting to you, Kate. Thanks a million for this.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jen.
Thanks. Take care. See you in the next session, folks.